Time to dive into another review, and today it's the turn of 2019 PS4 exclusive Erica. This game is unique and unlike any I've reviewed on this channel before. Firstly, it's an interactive fiction game, or interactive movie as some like to call it, so if you're a gamer who likes to be really hands-on and have lots of mobile freedom when you're playing, then this simply isn't the game for you. But if you are someone who's led by narrative and story-defining decisions, then stay tuned. Secondly, it's live action, which is unlike most console games. The story. Naturally, with an interactive fiction game, the story has to be very strong because it's basically the main thing it offers. In open world games, if the story begins to bore you, then you can wander away and terrorize the public for a while before venturing back into the storyline. In this game, you cannot. The story is a really deep and emotive piece, and it has been beautifully crafted together by the developers. It's a thriller by genre, and therefore you're on the edge of your seats for the entirety. If, like me, you love a good mystery and conspiracy, then this will tick all the boxes. The narrative can be bent a lot by your in-game choices, which noise you'll follow, which dialogue to select, and much more. I love games that give you this power whilst also maintaining a sensible plotline. Due to this, the story has multiple endings. Although a short story, there are several twists and turns along the way, and I always say that a good story is one that makes you sit there and think about it for a few minutes after finishing, and this game does. The best comparison I can draw it to, story-wise, would be that of the 2010 film Shutter Island, and I was left equally confused at the end of both. Some gamers online have criticised the story for being silly or hard to follow. I certainly disagree with the silly label. The game makes sense as much as a psychological thriller can do. However, I can get the point of the narrative being slightly difficult to follow. At times I had to pause the game and just try and work out where I was with it all. This has led to several forum theories in relation to the narrative. Although that does suggest it's not black and white, it also suggests the developers are leaving it open to audiences' interpretations and leaving it ambiguous purposely, and I like that. Overall, it's captivating and deep, but could have been slightly easier to follow. 8. Setting. This is a category that usually works well within an RPG review, which is what I normally do on this channel, but it can also apply to this game too. There are only a few locations featured in the game, and the main one is Delphi House, a shady mental asylum. The house is pretty stereotypical to that which we see in these types of stories. Old-fashioned, large manor houses with a pleasant front-facing facade. It kind of fits the bill, but with the nature of the game, the lack of exploring held it back. 6. Characters. The game's main character is Erica Mason, a young orphan girl whom is haunted by her past. Erica is portrayed by the brilliant Holly Earl, who really nailed the fear and vulnerability that Erica was feeling at times. Her delivery of the more emotive scenes really resonated with me and led to me being fully invested in her character. Supporting characters feature some other well-known actors, most notably Terrence Maynard and Chelsea Edge. We don't know a huge amount about the other characters, but that is by design. Everyone in this thriller is shifty and houses their own demons, which makes the choices we have to make as Erica even more difficult. Overall, excellent, but simply, we don't have enough time to get to know some of them. 7. Gameplay. Gameplay in live action fictions are difficult to review because, well, there's not a lot of it. You're essentially clicking and pointing for most decisions, but the game does go one further than most in this category by adding the ability to twist a key or to pull a trigger. You use the PS4 touchpad to interact, and I admit to initially finding this a little bit tricky and fiddly. For example, this was me trying to open a box 10 minutes into the game. However, you do get used to it very quickly. What is nice that you can also use your smartphone instead of your touchpad. This is done by downloading a specific Erica app, and in my opinion, works better than the PS4 touchpad. Also, it connects with a simple shared Wi-Fi connection, meaning you don't need to spend ages syncing it up. There's not much room for improvement when you consider the game type. However, maybe the option to control where Erica walks, albeit to the next destination area, would have maybe added a bit more for us to do, although that would likely be impossible given the live action style of this game. 7. Visuals. So many times in this category I say, it's almost like a movie. Well, this is. It's live action, meaning there is no CGI, it's simply real actors on the screen. Therefore, the only fair way for me to judge the visuals in this game would be how well shot the game is in terms of its cinematography. And I've got to say, it's really good. Jamie Stone and Jack Attridge are credited with directing, and they do an excellent job at creating the contrast of the lush, beautiful colours seen inside Delphi House and the deeper, darker tones lurking below. 9. Bugs. Short and sweet, there are really no proper bugs to speak of. Never once did the game crash or have any breaks in frame rate. Perfect score. 10. Length. So this game isn't long at all, but I think that really works when you consider the type. It comes in at around 2 hours, and that led to me completing the game in one sitting, which is kind of how I envision the developers want you to play it. This isn't an RPG where you can pause, save, go to work and carry on the next day. It's a story, and a good one. Never really was there a point where I felt like I could walk away or pause. The lack of natural break in the game means it flows really nicely and at a good pace. I'll admit I was sad when it ended so quickly, but the game has several replayability elements, as we'll discuss later, so it didn't really matter. 8.5. Fun. As I said at the start, if you're not into these types of games, you'll likely find it boring. But if you do appreciate good narrative combined with superb acting and the ability to lead the narrative down whichever branch you desire, then yes, this game is fun. Never in the 2-hour stint did I get bored, and I was completely immersed in the story. 8. Replayability. Would you play this game again? Yes, yes, and yes. The fact that this game is fairly short and has a multitude of things to do differently each time, each playthrough should be smooth and fresh. I know most gamers will be attempting to achieve each different ending and unlocking the relevant trophies. There are 6 different endings in total, so there you go. There's your first 6 playthroughs right there. 9. Value. So I feel cheap and dirty. I picked up this game on the PS Plus free game offer, therefore paid absolutely nothing. That offer is now over and it's back on the PS Store for £6.70 or $8 in the US. That is a sale price, but will only creep back up to £8 when at full price. In terms of interactive fiction games, I tried to compare the price to that of a movie. If you were going to the cinema or going to buy a new release DVD, it would roughly be around that mark. And when you consider the replayability factor, you're kind of getting 6 movies for the price of 1. 9. So, there you have it. I've only ever occasionally dabbled into this genre of gaming, but I have to say that this game has really provided me with a fresh outlook on it. It has also set the bar very high for others to follow. Who knows, this could be the beginning of a revolution for interactive gaming. For more reviews and other gaming videos, please hit subscribe.